Suggestions. For as long as Runescape has been running, Jagex has always had some form of communication regarding improvements that players could recommend. From the old Runescape forums to Discord and Reddit, that line of communication is still open today. It's the entire basis of this series, and has been an area I am very familiar with, especially when I was a teenager. And while many of those ideas have come and gone, there's one suggestion I've held on for a long time now, and I want to share with you all today. What's up, everyone? This is Destroyer229, and welcome to the Hotspot. Today's video is going to be very different compared to other Hotspot topics. Normally, the topics pick up on either a piece of content that feels unfinished or an area of the game that can be expanded on. Today, we'll be going over an entirely new idea, a brand new quest. Or, well, new may not be the best word to use for this instance. This video is more about a personal suggestion of mine that I've had for over 15 years now. This suggestion was around for a long time on the Runescape forums, but with the forums now discontinued, there's no spot left for it to be discussed on. And while I could just remake the post on Reddit, I want to be able to have a more in-depth discussion like the topics I've previously gone over, so I hope you'll indulge me on a little nostalgia trip. Don't worry, the rewards from this do tie back into unfinished content, so this isn't completely out of the Hotspot's range of discussion. This one just happens to be a lot more personal. We'll go over this in 3 parts. First, I'll go over my personal history on this quest, and similar ideas I had at the time. Second, I'll go over the quest itself, in an old-fashioned step-by-step explanation. And third, I'll go over the rewards for the quest, starting with the outdated original rewards, and moving on to something that's similar to those outdated rewards, but that expands on an already existing training method. So let me introduce you all to a child in need. Our story begins in the summer of 2008. It was the summer before my freshman year of high school, and I was beginning to be active within the Runescape forum community. While I was a frequent visitor to the future game updates and forum games pages, I was also engaged with the suggestions page. Seeing several people list their ideas for improving the game was like seeing a collective brainstorm within the community, and the long posts with people's usernames whose only contribution to a post was saying, "support," always showed how many people looked at and liked these ideas. Of particular interest to me were the quest suggestions, with people bringing up their ideas on how to continue current series or coming up with entirely new quests not tied to an existing storyline. Sometimes you'd even find someone posting an entire quest series, which were very long reads but showed the massive creativity within the forum community. These ideas inspired me to create my own quest suggestions, and ultimately, I had 3 ideas that I wanted to contribute. The first quest I came up with was the Dragon Heir's Revenge, which was my take on Dragon Slayer 2. The quest ultimately revolves around stopping the 3-headed green dragon in the Unstable Foundations tutorial. This dragon was to be revealed as the child of Elvard, and was threatening to destroy most of Gielinor as we know it, just like Elvard destroyed all of Crandor. The player needed to enlist the help of several allies, most prominently being the Knights of Camelot, to track down this threat and save the world from a fiery inferno. This was my idea of a grand showdown, with elements and rewards coming from people's suggestions, though the main draw was that this quest would see the release of the Dragon Plate Body, a nod for unlocking the Rune Plate Body in the original Dragon Slayer. The quest was posted in July of 2008 and was pretty popular, garnering over 1,000 posts and hundreds of people vocalizing their support for the idea. As time went on though, problems arose with how the idea played out. For one, the Dragon Plate body was released later that year with While Gothic Sleeps. But that was only the beginning of the problems the idea had. The Unstable Foundations tutorial was eventually retired and the dragon quickly forgotten. Jagex's reluctance to use the Knights of Camelot in any content past King's Ransom, with the only thing being used since then was a small role Merlin played in Once Upon a Time in Gielinor, which was also not a good sign. And Old School eventually released their own Dragon Slayer too. While I did keep up with updating the rewards to give the quest its own identity, eventually updates fell to the wayside. For years, I wanted to redo the quest and bring it up to a more modern standard, but there was so much that needed to be changed that it almost seemed like I needed to change the entire quest completely. At that point, very little would have remained of the original idea, and so the quest fell into obscurity and disappeared alongside the forums. The second quest was posted in December of 2008. This quest was a lot smaller in scope compared to the Dragonair's Revenge, and was one I was hopeful Jagex would take notice of because of that. The premise of this quest was to be a direct sequel to Monk's Friend, a quest that to this day, despite being around since Classic, is not required for any other quest. It was meant to give Monk's Friend a little more purpose, and tie with it other quests like Clock Tower, which also is not required for any other quests, and Gertrude's Cat, while also allowing the player to train construction a little more easily, in a time before God statues and Fort 4 and 3. This quest was a child in need, and is the main topic of our discussion today. Like the Dragonair's Revenge, A Child in Need received a lot of support and posts, with several ideas coming in on items to be created from the rewards, to expansions on the quest itself, ranging from adding in Clock Tower as a prerequisite, to adding in divination to the quest, alongside more ideas that we'll go into later in this video. Unlike my first quest though, this one did not require constant maintenance or rewrites. In fact, the only major thing I had to change for this video was the removal of the lumberyard and adding in new foundations to get access to Bill. Everything else surrounding the quest could all still function as it did when this idea was still on the forums. While questlines and stories have changed within RuneScape, A Child in Need kind of felt timeless to me. And with a few revisions, specifically to the reward space, it could still fit in seamlessly with the modern game. With the current focus on smaller scale quests, I'm hopeful that A Child in Need, in some way, shape, or form, can still make it into the game. My third and final quest was not as fortunate as my other two ideas. The working title I had for this quest was The Princess in Canifis, which involved helping an exiled princess who was stuck in Canifis and was desperate to escape her predicament. While I had a few concepts surrounding where the princess was from and why she was exiled, the quest unfortunately never made it out of the conceptual stage. I already had my hands full with schoolwork, plays, Boy Scouts, and maintaining my other two ideas, and so this idea was soon abandoned in favor of supporting and updating the other two quests as much as I could. From there, I wouldn't be coming up with new ideas, and instead would focus on expanding the reward space and tidying up Dragonair's Revenge and A Child in Need whenever possible. I was still active in other communities and still put out posts of my own, including a post defending the concept of a sailing skill, which, oh boy do people jump to conclusions by a title. That was a lesson I learned very quickly. But hey, I do feel vindicated thanks to Old School, so take that, haters! But time marches ever onward. My time was occupied by other means once I attended university, from classes to clubs to my Let's Play channel. And so I could only be active enough to keep the quests from falling off page 50 and automatically being deleted. I would often comment and thank people who would come on by and post, but those too died down as the forums lost traffic. While I am sad that I never got around to revamping the Dragonair's Revenge, I've always held out hope that one day A Child in Need could still be added to the game. Now that you know the brief history of where these ideas came from and how they developed, let's go over just what this quest is about. A child in need would be considered an intermediate level quest if we were talking about the old quest difficulty indicator. Its place in the timeline would be within the Age of Chaos due to Bill's inclusion. This was the only major revision from the original forum thread, otherwise the quest would have just been in the 6th Age. The quests required to start are A Monk's Friend, Clock Tower, Gertrude's Cat, Carnelian's Rising, Shadow over Ashdale, and New Foundations. Though if we were to limit it to required and recommended quests, then A Monk's Friend, Clock Tower, and New Foundations would be required, and Gertrude's Cat, Carnelian Rising, and Shadow over Ashdale would be recommended. The quest also requires level 45 Construction and 30 Divination, and the ability to defeat 2 level 30 Thieves and 1 level 50 Thief Leader. To start the quest, you must first speak to Brother Andro at the Edgeville Monastery. Brother Andro will tell you that he has been transferred from the Kandrin Monastery south of Ardoyne, as he and his fellow monks had one too many parties and gotten several complaints from neighbors. He's also in a bit of a bind, as the monks at the Edgeville Monastery will not allow a child to live there until he is old enough to understand the teachings of Saradomin. Since Andro does not want to give up his son, he will ask if you know someone who can take care of him in the short term. Accept the quest, and he will suggest that you talk to someone who's good with children and who also lives in the nearby area. From there, speak to Gertrude. Upon asking her about taking care of children, she will snap at you, saying, "Oh, not another one." Upon questioning her, she will tell you that several people have approached her with regards to looking after children. It's not that she doesn't want to, however, she does not have the space or the manpower to look after so many children beyond her own. Say that you're willing to help, and she will reconsider if you will foot the bill for an expansion for her house to place the children in, along with finding assistance and gathering supplies. Agree to her terms, and now you have 3 tasks to complete. Pay for the expansion, find 2 assistants, and gather toys, educational material, and other miscellaneous supplies. The expansion is the easiest task. Simply go to the estate agent in Varrock and ask for an expansion for Gertrude's house. The agent will request 50k to cover the expenses. Pay him, and he will call in some workers to get started. Next are the assistants. If you ask Gertrude for any leads, she'll mention that she's heard rumors of people who want to take care of children part-time. Press for details, and she'll say that while she doesn't know exactly who is inquiring, she will say that the rumors circulated around Birthrope and Ashdale. From there, you'll need to investigate both places to find the women who are willing to be Gertrude's assistants. Ultimately, the people you need to talk to are Kaleberg in Birthrope and Sarah in Ashdale. As an aside, this was originally Herged in Birthrope, but somewhere, and I don't know when, Jagus decided to remove her entirely from the game. So that was frustrating to see, but Kaleberg has the same significance, and so it doesn't actually change much with the quest. You won't need to do any tasks for them. Simply mention that Gertrude is looking for assistance for some part-time childcare, and they will go and talk to her. Finally, there are the supplies. When talking to Gertrude, she'll say that the items she will need will be a swing set, a teeter-totter, a dyed carpet, some educational posters, and some hand-me-down toys. She's unaware of where you would be able to get these items, so you will need to find them yourself. She can give you a hint based on the person's occupation, like say a blacksmith for the swing set or a dye maker for the carpet, just to give a few examples. But their locations will still be up to you to uncover. The people you'll need to ask are Horvik for the swing set, Bill for the teeter-totter, Aggie for the dyed carpet, Serenity for the posters, and Henrietta Carnelian for the hand-me-downs. Simply talk to the designated person and they will quickly get you the associated item that you will need to give to Gertrude. Once all 3 tasks are done, Gertrude will have one more task for you to accomplish. She will want you to get her a clock that will never be wrong. She will say that managing so many kids and keeping a healthy and safe business will require a lot of attention, and that a strict schedule is important to keep everyone on task. A normal clockwork clock will be desynced with time, or with a random ball knocking it down, and so having one powered by other means will mean one less thing for her to worry about. When asking for who would possess such knowledge, she'll say that maybe someone who lives in a clock would be the best place. If you go back to Andro, he'll say that brother Kojo was maintaining the Ardoin clock tower, and he'd be the best person to talk to. Though you could just skip Andro and just go straight to Kojo after Gertrude gives you the request. Speak to Kojo, and when you ask him about the request, he'll say that he has other issues to worry about. Some thieves came in the middle of the night and burglarized the clock tower. While he's perfectly fine, he does state that the thieves stole some valuable wires from the clock tower, and now it no longer works. He asks you to find the thieves and get the wires, and some other possessions that were stolen, back. If you ask why the tower uses wires and not gears, Kojo will explain that he's been in contact with some scientists in Dorgish Khan, and together they devised a way to make the tower more autonomous. Kojo was just about finished putting everything together when the thieves stole the wires, and replacements will take months to recommission, which is why it's important to get them back. Head to the thieves' hideout from a monk's friend and you will encounter the thieves. There are 3 thieves that you will meet, 2 level 30 thieves and 1 level 50 thief leader. You will attempt to negotiate with them, but they are not budging, and you will be forced into a fight with them. The weaker thieves are your standard enemies, but the thief leader will use various melee abilities like Dismember and Sever, and may be a little challenging for low-level players. After defeating the thieves, the last one will drop an item called a Pile of Wires. Take this back to Kojo and he'll ask you to reconnect them to the clock tower while he researches the clock Gertrude wants. Head to the central column on the highest floor of the clock tower, and there's a puzzle for you to solve. Each side of the pillar has a circuit that you will need to connect the wires to. There are 16 wires in total, and each side requires 4 wires to connect the beginning and end points to, creating one continuous circuit around the pillar. The wires have their own configuration and cannot be rotated, so you must find a combination that connects the beginning and end points together. However, you will only be able to view one section of the pillar at a time, so while one wire may work on one part of the pillar, that wire may be needed on a different portion. This may require some trial and error, assuming you aren't using a guide, so you may need to redo sections in order to make sure that all sides are fully complete. Once the puzzle is done, return to Kojo and he'll thank you for your hard work. He will give you an ordinary ornate clock for your efforts, and manage to find some way to fulfill Gertrude's request. The closest he could find to what Gertrude was asking for would be a power source that could be infinitely run and would never wear out. You'll remark about how that kind of sounds similar to divination energy, and Kojo will concur that divine energy sounds reasonable, but the energy should be at a proper level. Too low, and the clock won't function at all. Too high, and it will break the clock. Ask him what energy would be best, and he'll give you a hint that glowing energy would be the most ideal to use. Collect 100 glowing energy and a clockwork, and use the energy on it to create an enriched clockwork. Use that item on the ordinary ornate clock, and you will have a perfectly accurate clock. Return to Gertrude and give her the perfectly accurate clock. With the clock set, she has everything she needs to open a daycare. While you were busy, she was going around to everyone who was asking her before about the daycare service, and telling them that one would be opening soon, and she was also getting reservations for when it eventually opened. She'll need a little more time to finalize everything, but she will thank you profusely for your efforts. Return to Brother Andro, and a cutscene will play showing the grand opening of Gertrude's daycare. Talk to Andro again, and he'll apologize that you had to go through so much work on his behalf, but he is incredibly grateful, and Congratulations! Quest complete! So what are the rewards for finishing this quest? Well, the base rewards are 1 quest point, 10,000 construction XP, 5,000 crafting XP, and 5,000 divination XP. It also unlocked 2 abilities, emergency repairs and outdoor expansions. Emergency repairs was the original activity rewarded and was the primary reason to complete the quest, with outdoor expansions coming later to give the player a little boost to invention. I'll go over both of these ideas first, but there is a better reward space that we can use instead of either of these activities. So, do know that these 2 ideas that I'm talking about are legacy ideas, and are not what would be brought into the game today. Emergency repairs is a daily repeatable activity that you could partake in after finishing the quest. To start, talk to Gertrude, and she will say that she needs help repairing and replacing certain items in the daycare. Some examples would be a broken chair, a ripped poster, or a ruined doll. Each day, Gertrude will tell you 5 items like this that need maintenance done. For example, to replace the broken chair, you will need 2 oak planks, 10 nails, a hammer, and a saw, if they aren't already on your tool belt. Returning to Gertrude after the repairs are done would result in 1,000 construction experience for each item repaired, for a total of 5,000 XP per day. This was designed to be a repeatable event that could help players train their construction, long before the days of god statues and Fort 4 and 3. Outdoor expansions was a higher level continuation of the idea, which was a much later addition to the reward space. To do this activity, you will need 30 invention, along with finishing the quest and participating in emergency repairs. When you have finished all 5 items in a given day, a child will approach you and ask for more fun things to play with outside. This will give your character something called creative inspiration, which will allow you to create one of 5 new items to be added. These items would be random, but once made would not appear again. To create the item, you will need to use a workbench behind Gertrude's house and discover the item, in a process identical to discovering blueprints in Invention normally. The only difference is that you'll need a perfect rating to finish the process. Once done, you would then bring your idea to Gertrude and she will commission that item to be built, giving you 5,000 invention experience. Creating all 5 items will give you 2 XP lamps, giving the player 50,000 construction and invention experience. Once done, you can continue to receive creative inspiration to make the equipment safer or more fun. This doesn't change the appearance of the item, but would still allow you to gain the 5,000 invention experience each time this is done. So those were the legacy rewards, and I do want to reiterate that these are not the ideas that would be in place today. Instead, we'll use an already existing activity that is similar to how emergency repairs felt. A child in need will add in extra benefits to construction contracts. Now, this would also need to be released alongside or after an expansion to construction contracts already. This activity always felt like a proof of concept rather than a fully fledged out idea. And with Fort 4 and 3, having an AFK way to improve construction is a lot less necessary. But I feel like construction contracts can carve out a niche by offering more varied rewards rather than just experience, and feel more like a solo minigame to further assist the player's construction goals. So what would need to be added? Well, currently, construction contracts is limited exclusively to the Kingdom of Misselin. An easy expansion would be to add Asgarnia and Kandarin to the potential places we can go to, along with offering different tiers or types of planks that we will need to fulfill those contracts. As of now, the new planks are only useful in Fort 4 and 3. This isn't too different to how Old School's Mahogany Homes works, as that has contracts in just Varrock, Falador, Ardoing, and Hosidius. We obviously don't have Kourend, but adding in other human kingdoms and allowing the same treatment in places like Ringmington, Catherby, and even Hemminster would be a nice expansion of the idea. The rewards would also need to be touched up. Currently, the only things you can buy are plank boxes and an XP boosting outfit. There isn't even any way for you to spend points after you've bought everything, which has been a complaint since the introduction of construction contracts. So what would we add? Well, being able to buy higher tiered planks like magic or elder planks, plus whatever will be released in the tier 110 woodcutting update, would be a nice way to sink those points in something repeatable, especially for Iron Men. There could be further upgrades to the plank box to hold even more planks, incrementally going up to 1,000 planks of a given plank type. Another idea would be a personal contract, where the player has a 20% chance to choose where they would want to go from all available construction contract options, similar to the effect of the 120 Slayer Cape. One final idea we can throw in would also be an Elven song sheet, which when given to either Ilfine or Ilswin, will allow the player to build both construction contract hotspots and Fort 4 and 3 buildings 50% faster, so long as they have a Prif Dinis Crystal Saw in their inventory. The player would receive the same amount of experience when constructing either item, but the saw would degrade after each use, reverting to a seed after 28 items are constructed. This would also allow the saw to provide its +5 level boost to construction contract hotspots. This does not affect the level requirement to build any of the buildings, however. It would only speed up the time to construct the buildings at the fort. So that's all fine and dandy, but where does a child in need come in? Well, the player would still get the XP rewards listed before, but the activity reward now is that it unlocks 4 new spots for you to get contracts in: Gertrude's House, the Kandarin Monastery, the Kandarin Clock Tower, and the Edgeville Monastery. Each of these locations will also double all experience when constructing their items, double the reward XP on completion from 10k to 20k, and double the reward contract credits to use in the shop. These locations would also be available from the personal contract, allowing players to pick these locations when the effect activates. So that is my idea for a child in need, and the final original hotspot. What do you think? Is there any additions to the quest that you would make? Is there anything you'd like to see in a construction contracts expansion? And how do you feel about the hotspot overall? Would you like me to continue making discussion topics on these types of ideas? Is there an area that you would like me to see more discussion topics on? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope to see you all again soon. So until next time, everyone, take care.